All right, man. Listen, sometimes you just got to jump in and you just got to interrupt everybody's regular scheduled program and say, listen, the real world is not the real world. The real world is what you think is not real, and it's called conspiracies because conspiracies are real. There's just the other side of the truth. So I had to bring in my good friend, Chris McNelly, in to catch me up on everything that's going on. Dude, listen, I've got aliens. I've got hazmat attacks. It's messing up my supply chain. I got wars in Ukraine with countries that shouldn't be fighting with a country like Ukraine and not even being in a fight. Like it should be over. We've got green objects in Hawaii scanning, or we've got UFOs. What's really happening? What's going on out there these days?
You know, for your audience and people who don't know me, or people who think they know what I'm all about and how I operate, to give people a little bit of context and premise. One, go listen to my very first podcast that is on my own platform, and go listen to some of Gunner's podcasts from the past that I've been on to get a little bit more context on my point of view, my belief system, and the wealth of research. I won't say knowledge, but the wealth of information that I have put myself through over the years. What's happening in the world right now, I've been studying since I was a kid. Literally, since I was 16 years old, I've been at what the hell is actually going on. And so, to take things from face value in a cyclical standpoint, we are going through I would say, not early stages or mid stages, but we're getting into the climax of what is called a reset. And you can take this from a spiritual point of view. You can take this from a Earth Gaia point of view. You can bring in the other malevolent and benevolent beings that exist in our known world. Or you could take it just from the sense that there's power structures that no longer want to play ball with each other. And that being said, we're living it. We're in the thick of it. And you're finally starting to see the quote unquote normies wake up to, wait a second, we thought this was just politics. We thought this was bad policy. What the fuck's actually going on? And it's a good thing that people are questioning, because whether we want to address it, admit it, or try to understand it, there is something to be said about a collective quote unquote awakening, a collective thought, a collective think tank. And so we are starting to pick up steam on that across the board, across the world, when it comes to your average Joe taking a step back and auditing what the hell's actually happening in the world and questioning their belief systems and the current narratives. That's what's happening right now, Gunner.
Well, listen, I love this stuff, right? I think it's, obviously not great because a lot of this stuff affects us as humans and as people
Sure.
live on this planet, right? It's not the greatest thing. But also as the guy that loves chaos and loves being right, I also love this being like, well, I told you so, bitches. It's like one of those type of thing. And listen, literally, we did 4 episodes, I believe, at least 3, back to back to back weeks as COVID happened.
Yeah,
On
2020.
YouTube. And you would think that a podcast at the time that was only getting a couple hundred views and likes across all platforms, and on, probably those episodes, maybe a couple hundred on YouTube, they all got flagged and they all got taken down at points of time. So it's like, okay, wait a minute. If this stuff doesn't matter, why would that happen?
Sure.
One reason. Especially if only a couple people heard it. It's like, you don't want no one to hear the stuff? Okay, anyways. So here's some stuff that's out on my mind that I got to talk about. What do you know, or what have you read? Because people don't understand you, man. Like, they don't understand that Chris, like, his spare time is reading this stuff. Like, you love this stuff. You love going deep into it, understanding it, being able to speak to it when people have questions. And that's why I like talking to you about it. So, like, these balloons, these weather balloons, these spy balloons
Sure.
that China over, like, how does a balloon come into, United States airspace and go from Alaska to freaking South Carolina before we're like, you know what? We should probably go ahead and take this down. Like, what is that? What do you think that is?
So people need to understand, first of all, what's actually happening in the grand scheme of things. I'm talking about a worldwide reset. And this has happened before. The last time this actually, it's funny that you mentioned this, because I was talking to a friend of mine about this earlier. This is a book called The Great Tartarians, okay? So the Tartarians, they were a race of offsets of the Nephilim, the giants. They used Tesla type technology. They were a country that was greater than Rome, an empire greater than that, greater than ours. They were wiped off the face of the earth not long ago, and that history has been hidden. And this is where you can go look up the Great Mud Flood Reset. And people might ask themselves, why? If we were to go back into the annals of humanity and our history and why we're here, there's something very special about us that's very unique, because we come from source, we come from God. Many people, whether it's in scripture or it's in the other 23 subtexts that exist around the world, antiquity and ancient cultures, we are unique and we are special. And there's something about us that has incredible otherworldly, universal, celestial value. And that is the fact that we are eternal beings. Whether people want to believe that or not, I don't really give a shit. It is what it is. Go look into your DNA. It's in our entire genetic makeup. What is up is down. I say that because what's happening right now, going back to your balloon question, what you're seeing, and you can go look this up. I've got the receipts, because again, I don't look at any of this stuff the same way most people do. I have the receipts, and letting people know in 2020 that in time, the current narratives will shift. Okay? So think about it. I was very outspoken against COVID. I was very outspoken against the vaccine. I was very outspoken against what was happening in the process in which it was happening. And I let people know that at some point in the future, these narratives will be flipped on their head. And not just flipped on their head, they're literally going to be proven that they were absolute lies. And so what happens when a power structure is not only losing control of the think tank thought collective consciousness that exists around the world, but they're also losing control because they no longer have access to their money. They have no longer access to the military. So what we're seeing right now is a literal attack on the world, an attack on America, but also we're seeing distraction after distraction after distraction. I have made this very clear. I have friends in Austin, Texas. I hope they see this. Some of them have already reached out to me. I remember telling my friends in 2015, after we partied hard at ACL, about the coming Project Bluebeam UFO fake alien invasion that is on the table for the world. Okay? For people who don't believe that, go look into the WikiLeaks emails. I've got a link. I'll put it on my social media. I do this probably every week. I'll put certain links back on so people can go look it up. To give you a little bit of context of how real this is, in 2016, when Donald Trump ran for president, because he was never supposed to, according to previous timelines, John Podesta's email chains and leaks inside of those email chains from John Podesta, who's one of the most powerful men in politics. He's the capstone, the keystone of DC. And when he is arrested, it all comes crumbling down. So we can go into that later. Either way, he mentioned, how are we going to get all these fucking people from not vote? Because the conservative base, come hell or high water, is literally going to go vote. And they put in there that one of the options was to initiate Project Bluebeam throughout the Southeast to simulate a spiritual experience to keep people from voting. Okay, so this is how real this technology is. It's no different than HARP and what we saw in Syria. For those of you who think that these are acts of God, go look into the HARP technology. It's existed for a long time. It became mainstream in the 90s. In the 2008 Beijing Olympics, China even said, we're using our own HARP technology to keep our weather perfect for the duration of the Olympics. That's interesting. And so with what's happening right now, not only is this an onslaught and an attack, it's not just an attack against the people, it's an attack against the acting president of the Republic of the United States, the 19th president of the Republic of the United States, which is Donald Trump, and most people don't want to accept that or know that, but you have to go into what's called common law and maritime law to understand the landscape of what's taking place around the world. And so with that being said, those balloons, by the way, bullshit, it's not a big deal. It is a massive distraction. And if the mainstream media is talking about it, then you know that something is afoot, okay? Now, it's also preparation. And what I mean by that is subconsciously, if it's in the narratives of the media, then they're trying to let you know that something's coming down the pike. Because what happens, Gunner, when the COVID narrative isn't just exposed for being a lie, but what took place in the hospitals with people who were perfectly healthy. And now we get into the CDC and the WHO, and we get into our ethics and what took place if people really were killed with remdesivir and other medical practices or malpractices. And now we're dealing with genocide. Now we're dealing with war crimes. Now we're dealing with crimes against humanity. Not only that, what happens when these elites start coming to the table and being exposed for what took place with Jeffrey Epstein, who was an FBI informant and worked for the Mossad, by the way. The rabbit hole is deep on this, and these people do not want to be found out. But beyond that, there is a loss of control here. Whether people want to accept this or not, I grew up very spiritual, guys. All these books behind me. I grew up in an occult church, and everything was Jesus. And if you smoke a cigarette, drink a beer, jack off, then you're going to hell. And I promise you, I have worked my butt off to come out of religion and come out of indoctrination and to ask for truth. Because, and Gunnar, you mentioned something about being right. My whole mission in life, and you probably know this, has been the truth. It's all I want to know. I want to know the truth, because if people will pursue the truth, one, it'll set you free. Two, it's a hard pill to swallow, but there's freedom there. And so rather than being right, my job right now is to prepare people, not only mentally and spiritually, but even physically, tangibly. You mentioned supply chains. I don't think people understand what's getting ready to happen in this country without intervention, which I do believe is coming. It's still going to get worse. Oh fuck, it's going to get so much worse. But before that intervention comes, people are going to realize that there is an actual war against the United States right now. And Gunnar, how many times have I said this? If they cannot get us through the fear of a pandemic or through the fear of World War III, then they're going to come for our energy and our food. And so you're seeing that happen right now with our supply chains and with the chemicals that are being put into our groundwater, our rivers, and what's happening to every single food processing plant in this country and around the world. If they cannot control us through the fear narratives, then they'll control us with our food and our energy. And you're seeing it happen right now. And so that's what's coming down the pipe next. You're about to see some really heavy shit take place when it comes to the harsh reality that America is one of the most codependent countries, not only from like a mental health aspect, but most people can't fish, hunt, clean their food, process it, or it comes down to self-governance and self-sustainability. We lack all of it. And so what do you do when a country the size of ours, the mass population centers are in city centers? They ain't got gardens, you ain't got food. I got 5 acres sitting outside, thank God, with deer and fresh water and turkeys and good neighbors, good community members. That's not everybody. That's not most people. And so the stage has been set for everything that I've been talking about since 2012. I've been studying this since 2006 when I was a sophomore in high school. It's happening. Whether people want to believe all the conspiracies or not, whether you're still white knuckling your core belief systems, doesn't matter. This is happening whether you like it or not. The great thing is that even in those books back there, or even in this one here, is that there is help out there, guys. We're not the only beings that exist in this realm. And there's also some really evil shit that's a part of it as well. There's some very malevolent beings that are at the top of these power structures. And we're going to see all of this transpire. And I keep telling people to look to the skies. There's a sky event coming. And when that takes place, it's going to be the one thing that wakes everybody up fully. Some people are going to stay in this 3D timeline and some people aren't. And I know that's hard to wrap people's heads around, but this is getting real. It's getting heavy and you're starting to feel it. And I know that that's probably a lot under one roof and in one take, but we're dealing with far more than the incompetency of a old bag president and our military and some, oh no, scary Chinese balloons. By the way, if you want to know what those are, it's called satellites. Space is fake and it's not what we're fucking told. And half you people have been duped. The conspiracy that Dwight D. Eisenhower speaks of that is so large you wouldn't believe it. I don't have all the answers, but I know what's going on. How all this ends, I can't tell you exactly, but I know how it's playing out right now. And this isn't about being right, but I'll tell you this much. Even my girlfriend said today that I'm batting 800. I'm Hall of Fame fucking numbers right now, and it's not about being right. Right now, people, I don't agree with living in fear, but being naive and putting your head in the sand is one of the dumbest things you can do. And if you're a man out there right now and you've got a family and you're not doing what you can, whether it's with guns, ammo, provisions, food, and a plan, shame on you. Shame on you hard for all you soy boy beta cucks out there. I don't care what kind of attention this gets me, because when the chips fall where they're going to, people are going to look back and they're not going to give a shit about how harsh I was. They're going to realize, oh, damn, I didn't do any of these things for the people that I care about.
Dude, but you're right. Listen, I posted as you were doing your little monologue there, because I'm definitely not interrupting you, because I know we're both the same way. We go on rants and we're ready to roll and we do it. So I posted all 3 videos that we've done together, and those were all like they back to back weeks during COVID. And I mean, you kind of hit on all of it. But the crazy part is, kind of like the whole Alex Jones thing, if they all haven't happened yet and been proven true, some of them have, which makes you believe the other ones are most likely to also come true. Like, you're saying stuff that is over the top and extravagant and can be looked at as like, people can roll their eyes at people that talk about conspiracies. But you say it yourself. What is a conspiracy? It's a word we created just to make people quit thinking about like other ways of things happening, right? Like that's pretty much all conspiracy is.
The word conspiracy, or the term conspiracy theory, was created after JFK's assassination by the CIA and propagated by them. Guess what we found out this past year? That the CIA and the FBI were directly involved in not only Martin Luther King Jr.'s murder, but also John F. Kennedy's. And so, again, I can go down every rabbit hole we want to. What I hope people can understand is whatever gifts and abilities I have in business, from a projector standpoint, from a vision standpoint, it's very easy for me to remove myself emotionally and to see things from a 40,000 bird's eye view and be able to connect how all of this works. Whether people want to accept these things or not, this country is literally at war right now. The world is at war. All of these booms that you keep hearing around the world in these small towns, all these disappearances, everything's connected. What I'm getting at is this war has ultimately been waged underground for the last few years. People are very unaware of our deep underground military bunkers and the fact that they are connected around the entire world, every last one of them. But not only that, this is where the vastness of human and sex trafficking takes place. Not only that, this is where the Greys reside and the deal that was made after Roswell in 1953. But all of this is changing because, again, they're not the only beings that exist in this realm and in this earth and on this earth. Because whether people know this or not, there's a quote from Scripture that goes hand in hand with what Zechariah Stitchin talks about with the Sumerian text, the Emerald Tablets, the other 23 subcultures in the world. There is a group of beings that are waking up. They're called the Nephilim. There's a passage of Scripture that says that men's heart will fail them with fear with what they see coming up upon the earth. And we're in that timeline where we're going to see the vastness of our oceans and what's really down there and who's really down there, along with what's going to come out of the sky, which is interdimensional. These things are coming onto the earth and people aren't ready for it. They found Gilgamesh's tomb, mind you, in Iraq recently. And there is some men of war and military personnel that are whistleblowing this and letting people know that not only when they found that, they found a race of giants in this cave alive. Not everybody made it out of that situation. This goes pretty hand in hand with other special forces that speak out about what took place for the Iraq war and Afghan war. There's a portal in Iraq, and that's what our governments were wanting and looking for. This is tied to CERN. This is tied to the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, NORAD, Project Looking Glass, Tesla's energy, and what I mentioned earlier, the Tartarians. They use the same types of free energy and quantum energy that the Egyptians used, Stonehenge. You look at every pyramid in the world, the Atlanteans, the Lemurians, the Asgardians, all this shit's real. Marvel's just telling you what's actually happening. And so I share all this because we are at the end of the age. The Bible talks about it being the apocalypse. The Sumerians talk about it as Nibiru or Planet X. But what I have had confirmed with people in higher places and who are definitely more important than me in this narrative is I asked them point blank, have the timelines been merged? And I don't know fuck with people on this one. If you were to go and watch Infinity War or Doctor Strange and Marvel, the time stone is something that is imperative to that series and its context and its storylines. One of the characters is using the time stone to pull from the dark and the light energy. But at the same time, they have to jump timelines to change the outcomes of what's taken place. And this is where Project Looking Glass comes in. This is where CERN, the Mandela effect, time travel, John J. Trump, Donald Trump's uncle, who worked on Tesla's case after he died, and 35 documents were taken from there that the FBI never recovered. This is where the Druez, Lincoln, Clooney bloodlines come in, how Lincoln, Kennedy, and the Trumps are all related, all connected, and they're all working together, and they have been for a very, very long time. This is why you have books like The Adventures of Baron Trump. Everything's connected. And we're going through the end of the age, folks, and it is, from what I was told, there is coming a scare event that is by design so that the masses actually finally wake up and get out of this matrix and get out of this fear space. But it is going to look and feel like the end of the world.
You know, so I love this. I mean, when you say things, I could go in so many different directions. I want to stick to kind of current events and let's kind of go backwards. So everyone talked about COVID being a crazy time. Remember, people, COVID was March of 2020. We are in February of 2023. That's
3 years.
Long time ago. And it went like this. So things that have happened just recently. Let's just think about, 2023. So far, we've seen these satellites. You know, before I even asked you about it, I was going to say that I had heard that's what it was. And I heard that from Eddie. So Rogan, on Rogan's podcast the other day, he had like the old school podcast, Brian Callen, Brendan Schaub, Eddie Bravo. They did a Fight Companion for the last UFC. Yeah, the OGs. And, you know, like the original podcast, Eddie Bravo was like on the first 100 episodes, right? So, and all they talked about was conspiracies. So Brendan goes, hey, man, I've been waiting to hold this off. Joe's about to get mad because I'm about to ask this question. But Eddie, what about those weather balloons, eh? And Eddie was like, listen, man, I could go on one of my rants. Like I say all my stuff, I've grown up. I've matured. You all know that's satellites. Those are satellites. And Joe goes, all right, moving to the next fight. And he just kind of got away from it because Joe is at a point now where he's so big. Someone has gotten to Joe because his podcasts have gotten so far off the conspiracy spectrum. He's now almost a talking head in a political agenda. It's still, I think he still means well, and he's still on the right side of the war. He's on the right side of the path, but he's definitely not the old Joe as in like talking about conspiracies and stuff. So
people like Joe Rogan, what I want people to understand is there's certain names I don't name when it comes to experiences that took place in Hollywood. Same thing with Joe. Joe Rogan has a family. And I can promise you this, if someone came to me and said, Chris, if you keep doing what we're doing, we're going to kill your son, I'd shut the fuck up real quick and I'd disappear. My ego and my pride and all you people out there aren't worth that. Right. So I get it.
So they talked about that. So let's talk about the satellites. Does this tie into, I can't remember, are you still team flat earth or no? You're more dome, right? You're the biodome.
What people need to understand about the Earth and the heliocentric narrative that was created, a few hundred years ago, is it's not just that it's flat. Okay, science. I've got books and books and books and annals of. I've got 748 documents going on a hard drive from the DoD, DARPA, the United States Air Force, our United States government, other world governments, that all of our training and simulation programs on every flight simulator is based on a non-moving linear flat plane. That should tell you something. Every pilot that you can get quartered and actually talk off the record, they're going to tell you, yeah, it's flat. Not only that, I had the unique situation when I was really digging after I told God, you better start telling me some shit or I'm going to get a little bit more reckless. I got to speak directly with a pilot from the SR-71 project, which was the high altitude flight programs back in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And I pretty much straight up asked him, is it flat and are aliens real? And he said yes to both. And so I've gotten to have these moments and experiences with people that have been fortunate to lead me further into discovering truth. Now, not only are we a part of an infinite, this is personally my own personal belief, an infinite flat plane, but it is connected to what we have found to be 178 other known worlds. Okay, so this is where you get space. Okay, the idea of space is water. So if you were going to look at where we live, it's a terrarium. The ancient Hebrew biblical cosmology, the Sumerian text, like all of this talks about the waters above, the waters below, the great deep. The only way out of this place is either through the technologies of these other beings that does exist in these other worlds, the ancient republics, the Anunnaki. They have the technology to go through the domes. And that's where we see these meteorites coming through. That's interdimensional travel. But the other way is down and through the ocean and out, okay? Because we live in a terrarium. This is where we get Mars, Asgard, all these, Jupiter, the Nibiru. These places exist, but it's not what we're told. And there's a reason for that. It's to hide creation. It's to hide humanity's intelligent design. And it is to keep us at bay from finding out what we really are. And I can go into that later. But yes, we live in a dome. And that glass ceiling that they're trying to break, they've been at it for years. You can go look up Operation Fishbowl. There's about 6 of them, but these are all government ran projects to try to break through the firmament. Even Werner von Braun, who was a Nazi, okay, this is how deep all of this is and how messed up it all is. Werner von Braun worked for Hitler and the Nazis, and then post World War II, Operation Paperclip took place, okay, and that's where the U.S. government and NASA, which is all full of shit, by the way, they went over and took some of the greatest and sharpest minds from Germany and the Nazis, and they brought them in and started creating secret space programs and you name it. On Werner von Braun's tombstone or gravestone is Psalms 91 something. Either way, he's literally telling everybody about the firmament. And so all of these different programs that exist are to keep people at bay, and that money's funneled into black book projects. I mean, the secret space programs exist, and Elon Musk talking about being on Mars is very real, but it's not in the way that we think. The way that we get there is very roundabout. And I can go into that, but every satellite that you see is a fucking balloon. Most of our internet is run through underground cables that go through the ocean. All of this you can go look up. Every last bit of it. It's not conspiracy. It's documented. There's companies that literally run internet cables through the Atlantic Ocean. And so, yes, whatever these balloons are, it's just one big narrative to freak people out. Go look up Project Blue Beam. Go look up what Japan's doing with their theater in the parks. Go look up what the schools are doing when it comes to their gymnasiums and what they're showing kids through holographic images. All of it's ready. All of it's been ready. Why do you think they're spraying our skies? Because we have a dome, so they can project off of it.
So, okay, I haven't heard you talk about the internet in the water before. So let's break this down a little bit. So you think that I'm not going to say that. How long has, go back to Tesla, right? There was a big stink about Tesla. He figured out a way to pretty much do Wi-Fi before we should even be able to do Wi-Fi. Was that part of it? Kind of like he has the certain spots in different parts of the world, and it with the power, the frequencies just worked so well because it was the 369 frequency or whatever that they just talked to each other, and they wanted to get away from that because that was going to be very cheap and you couldn't charge people for it. Was that pretty much the?
If people are still viewing this from a political or a monetary standpoint, I understand that to an extent, but it's still very elementary. And what I mean by that is if here's my conclusions. If the world really is black and white, left versus right, and it's about power and control, then life's really easy to figure the fuck out. Think about that. If it really is just we have to eradicate racism and patriarchy, and we've got to distribute the wealth, then life gets real easy because now we know the problems, which means we can offer the actual solutions. But that's never the case. It's always throwing something else, look this way while we're doing it over here. And so if you ask yourself those questions, then you got to start digging a little deeper of what's really going on. And so this goes back to control. If humanity at our core, think about it in the Lord of the Rings, I would say that humanity in that narrative are the hobbits. We're very simple people. We're very good people at our core. I think we've been lied to by religion that we're evil and we're bad when we come into this place. No, our programming makes us that way. We're in theta from 0 to 7, which means we're very close to God in our original source, which means we're good. It's our programming that turns us into monsters. Not only that, think about it. If you can control the energy, then you make people dependent on what? Whoever controls that energy. And so this is where 1913 really changed everything in the landscape of the United States and the world at large, because then you started getting things like the Education Act, you got the Federal Reserve Act. You started to see people move from self-sustainability and suburban areas, farmland, into city centers. And so Tesla understood that we don't only just live on a flat plane, okay? So for all you people that are butthurt out there, you got to go deeper here. If you are to go look into the Fibonacci sequences and how everything actually works in 369, if the world is flat and everything is harmonics and everything is frequency and vibration, buoyancy, magnetism, density, think about it. We are made up of 4 main elements, okay? And we're 70% water. Go look at how you can manipulate water with frequency and vibration and what it does to it. Go look at how music was changed from 432 hertz to 440 hertz. Look what happens to water under 432 hertz versus 440 hertz. Everything from a food that we eat to the Gwyn and Elf towers that are put up all around the world to the 5G, we are electromagnetic beings that are stuck in this 3D electromagnetic holographic universe, and we're manipulated because of it. And so what happens when you give people free energy? We're self-sustainable, and we understand that our food is a resource that allows us to function at peak levels. For all you fatties out there that are going to Golden Corral and dipping your dick in the chocolate fountain, okay? And you're over there smoking your cigarettes and you're watching your football and you're mad that your team lost because you don't know who the fuck you are. Let me tell you something. When you go out into nature and you do a 30-day fast and you're just drinking water and you ground yourself because you're an electrical being, you know what happens to your blood, Gunner, when you get yourself on grass for 45 minutes? Do you know that the coagulation of your blood spreads out and you become more vascular, and all of a sudden that blood can take on more oxygen, which means that your body starts to process and operate at higher levels and higher frequencies? Why do you think alcohol is legal? And yet marijuana is not. DMT is not. Mushrooms are not. Everything is about control. And if you can control people through fear and manipulation by keeping their bodies in a low vibrational state, they can't tap into the fact that we should be harmonious with this earth. And a spherical earth that is riddled in masonry and Luciferian doctrine, floating through space at 1,000 miles an hour, spinning, going around an ever-expanding universe in fucking nothingness with a sun that's 93 million miles away. It's not. The sun is local, and so is the moon, and so is the dark sun. It makes people feel pointless and worthless and like their life has no goddamn meaning. And that's the whole purpose. Because when people start to wake up, and it's happening now, and we start to find out who we really are and how God created us and our purpose here, man, these people are scared shitless. And so the only way out right now for them is to blow it all up. And that's what we're seeing. We're about to see a fake nuclear Cuban Missile Crisis. We're most likely going to see a fake alien invasion, and they're going to shut the internet or the power off in certain pockets of the world, if not everywhere, because we're in the end game. Their backs into a corner. There's nothing they can do, whether people realize this or not. I have my own conjecture and ideas on what's ultimately coming. But whether people know this or not, Donald Trump is a part of a very, very unique select group of individuals in this timeline. I think in another one, he was a bad dude, but we're dealing with another version. Because in the Infinity Wars in Marvel, and again, this isn't dogma, it's just a movie, but Hollywood was co-opted by the CIA in 1953, and everyone that reads it understands that there's a literal spiritual and psychological programming factor there. Dr. Strange tells Robert Downey Jr. out of the 14 million outcomes, only one of them is going to guarantee or give them the option of success, okay? From what I've gathered from the military faction in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex and NORAD, which was established during JFK's tenure, Project Looking Glass, okay, the past or the future proves past, okay, jumping into multiple timelines, okay, humanity's optimal timelines through quantum intelligence, and some of these Palladian and other intelligent beings who are benevolent and good, made it very clear that there was one guaranteed outcome, that we could jump timelines and most people wouldn't find out, and everything would work out for the greater good. And that one option was Donald Trump becoming president. And so he was approached in 2014 about all of this, the version that we know, even though this plan has been in the works since JFK, from what I've been told. Again, this is where the Mandela effect comes in. A lot of people are going to think this is batshit crazy, but to let any of you know out there that I'm not insane, I'm 3 years sober. I am 10 steps ahead of most of you people. I'm raising a family. I'm a good man. I am very good at what I do. And I promise you, if you'll dig deep and look inward, you'll find some answers for yourself, but you got to let go of some of your core beliefs. And that's going to be you probably getting out of your Southern Baptist pew, which is also a cult and also compromised. I've got documents on how Billy Graham was propped up and raised up to take over the Protestant Christian faith in America, and they did a damn good job of it. People don't want to hear it. People don't want to realize that. I tell people all the time, your life's a lie. And people ask me, well, what if find out all this shit's fake and not real? Well, I'm batting 800, and I promise you this much. Two things are going to happen with the outcome of my life. I'm going to wake up right and maybe dead, or I'm going to wake up wrong and filthy rich, and I don't give a fuck. So what is anybody going to do about it? Nothing, okay? You can't tell me nothing. I'm out here trying to help people, because guess what? We're getting ready to go into food shortages. We're getting ready to go into some different types of chaos that this country, with our fucking sissy, privileged, soy boy, feminist, leftist, Marxist, indoctrinated bullshit. Most of you people are pussies, and you can't handle the fact someone telling you that you're wrong, much less I'm actually just trying to help you out. And so people ask me all the time, aren't you worried about your job? Aren't you worried about your career? No, because men like me create autonomy. Because when all this shit hits the fan, my phone's not going to stop ringing. You should see my DMs. It's constant now. Chris, what about this? Chris, what about that? What are we going to do? This is coming from men. A lot of them have been in the military, which should tell you something. People aren't ready for this mentally, spiritually, or physically.
So what do you think's next, right? You mentioned the fake. I'm with you. Anytime the government tells me something, I'm against it. Like, I'm a big alien guy. I'm a big UFO guy. I hope they come out of the sky. You know, I hope that happens, right? Like, I'll be like, I told you so. I was right. But now they're starting to tell me about aliens. This happened in 2018 when everything came out, when they were like, hey, UFOs, and hey, we saw this Tic Tac, and hey, this was on a naval ship. Like, and then you go listen to the guys like Ryan Graves, who did Rogan's podcast and hundreds of podcasts, not just Rogan's. I just referenced that. But, you know, he's a Navy pilot who said, listen, every day we were doing drill out there on the coast. Like, we would be so far off the coast that we couldn't go out to go see them and come back. We wouldn't have enough fuel. So they just kind of stayed out there and just kind of floated in a certain area. But when they did move, it moved in directions that you shouldn't be able to move in. Right. They never messed with them, never got in, you know, around them or whatever. But there was in one little pocket of area where it's really hard to get to in the ocean, whether you're flying or in a boat or however you get there, right? That's kind of where they hang out. So, and he said this, you know, a year and a half ago. It's like, listen, all this stuff, it doesn't add up and not be true. Like, if it's adding up in a certain direction to be true. So what do you think's next? Do you think the next thing is we're going to see the fake spaceships come in, or maybe we see a crashed UFO that is like a built UFO by, you know, somebody, and then it's like, hey, the aliens are here, everybody stay inside. nobody go, like, that's the new pandemic. The pandemic is you might get killed by aliens, and then they're going to have pretty much a war that might come stateside or might not come stateside. Like, what do you think happens here?
Let me give you some context so that our options make sense. So I talk. This is going to go back into politics, but there's a reason behind it. I always tell people on my stories, what is DC? Why are executive orders important? And people just brush it off and think, oh man, there's some fascist. The state, the District of Columbia, okay, Washington D.C., England, and the Vatican are all independent sovereign nation states that act outside of any other international governing law. Okay, these are the three power factions that have existed for a very long time that have controlled the world. So most people don't realize that the Corporation of America was founded in 1871. Okay, and we became dependent and a franchise of the Bank of England. Everything's owned by the Vatican, or it was. So the District of Columbia is technically its own country. It is not. It has nothing to do with the United States Republic of America. And so since 1871, this country has been controlled by a company. Okay, and so that's why you have different types of laws and people getting away with different types of what we would consider illegal things because they act outside of our actual constitutional law. So what took place during Trump's presidency was, with these executive orders, most people don't realize this, that we've been under a national emergency since 2018. Okay, he signed into law 3 powerful executive orders involving human and sex trafficking and crimes against humanity, and then election interference. Those executive orders have never been dismissed, recanted, or revised by Joe Biden. Why? Because he's not our president. He is a invalid president, occupying a powerful seat illegally. And also, Joe Biden's been dead since 2018. I have confirmation on that, and there's 4 actors playing the motherfucker. Gunner, I'm going to send you some shit from Hollywood on the masks.
I'm with it.
Dude, people have no idea this, but I do know that he is going to be unmasked. And the Simpsons talk about
real quick.
Shit. Yes.
Cut you off real quick. Didn't you, when you went to one of the Trump meetings, because I don't know if people know or not, you've been to some of these meetings.
Sure.
Like, didn't you meet the Hollywood makeup artist that creates the mask for people to go undercover? Was that you that did that, or did I read that in Patrick Bet-David? Anyway, regardless, somebody met and interviewed a person that creates the mask. They were in Hollywood back in the day. The government hired them, or the CIA, or whoever the main people are around
for all
here.
the doubles.
They hired them, to create the mask, to do doubles for every high-level person, whether it's a president. They had someone come in, I believe it might have been the first George Bush. I'm pretty sure it was. They had somebody come in with his mask on, with a voice like recording type of thing that hooks up to your voice that makes you speak a certain way, no matter how you speak, and was him in front of him. And he couldn't tell that. He was like, what is this? Like, I might have that story a little bit wrong. Patrick Bet-David tells it on his podcast. He interviewed the person that did it.
It's very, very real. People, I mean, I did some things on some low-level stuff in Hollywood where I had makeup done. Took 4 hours. Now, granted, the stuff that they have now is wildly better. It's incredibly fast. And these things are literally near perfect. But even doing that, you can't tell half this shit most of the time. But regardless, that is very true. And a lot of these people are dead, mind you. They've been dead. The war's already been won. It's just a mitigation of risk at this point for people like you and me, the humanity. But what I'm getting at is those executive orders were never recanted. They were never revised, and they're still active now. Donald Trump still actually holds the nuclear codes. That's why they were in Mar-a-Lago. They were trying to get some shit and plant some shit. But again, the stuff that's happening is so far above and down the line that people are playing catch up, including myself. And so what I'm getting at, what we're seeing right now, is those executive orders have been active this entire time. And that's why you're seeing, even go back to the inauguration. I have friends that live in DC that were there on inauguration day. It was snowy, it was sleety, it was gross. And if you go watch all the videos, the inauguration was pre-taped on a very sunny day, and people changed clothes during it. They did it 12 minutes previous or prior to the constitutionally correct way to do it. There were so many misnomers throughout it that it was all staged. Most of the things that you've been seeing have been filmed at Tyler Perry Studios, Amazon Studios, and Castle Rock Studios. There's even a video of Joe Biden in the executive quarters writing and signing executive orders. In the background of this, in the window, you see Donald Trump walking behind him. Like, there's so many Easter eggs, like he was there the whole time. This is all a show. This is kabuki theater. This has already been done. We're watching it play out. And what I mean by that is you can't tell people, you have to show them. Because the indoctrination is so deep. I mean, this is 3+ generations deep. And so what we're getting ready to see play out is the narratives have been shifted. And people have asked me, Chris, when did you really, really know that all of this was like 100% fucking real? It was the midterms of this year when I realized, though, like, there's no going back. This is it. This is actually happening. What I mean by that is I had been told many, many things. And there is a quote in the drops that misinformation matters. I remember telling a buddy of mine, Kerry Lake's going to lose and John Fetterman's going to win. And we're not going to see this play out the way that we think. There's going to be some sort of control factor in this to where we start to see prosecution take place, but it's not going to play out the way that the conservative base really wants. And I was 100% right. And I've been right about even fucking DeSantis. The dude's a snake in the grass. He's bought, paid for. He's a Skull and Bones member. Soros is backing him. George Bush is backing him. If you're a conservative and you like DeSantis, you need to get your shit together and do your research, because that dude is he's literally a Trojan horse. Executive orders, they matter. What happened during those executive orders is all of these people who have made fuck you money off the backs of the American people and the rest of the world. Ukraine is the head of the Khazarian mafia. It is the headquarters for the elite. It's like a propped up faux country since 2014 when the Obama administration pulled a coup and established Zelensky. They're funneling all their money there because they're all broke. They don't have access to any of the same shit they used to. And we're starting to see the total collapse of this. Not only that, Ukraine is where all the biolabs are for COVID. Okay. It's also where massive hubs for adrenochrome manufacturing and sex trafficking are. And what you're seeing is Putin was replaced years ago. Most people don't want to accept this. They don't want to believe it. So is Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been, the one that we're watching is not the real Elon Musk. He's been replaced. Half these fucking people have. I know that's hard to believe, but it's the truth. That he's playing a very, very significant role in all of this when it comes to free speech. Regardless, you're seeing the actual implosion of these power factions now because of common law and maritime law that's taken place. And so we're seeing doubles and actors. There's good actors and bad actors in this. We're going to see people that we thought were just straight up fucking evil turn out that they were just playing a role. They were playing their part. And so that's what we're getting ready to see. We're getting ready to see these power factions that have controlled the world start to go at each other. We're about to see a civil war amongst the cabal and the elite, and it's gonna spill over into the public. And what I mean by that is what we're seeing now. It is all hell is breaking loose. The war and the attack on America right now is not an attack on us. It's an attack on pretty much the other power factions in the quote unquote Trump camp, the Q group, the military white hats, the Palladians. This is all part of it. This is an attack on them, and you're seeing a very scared animal backed into a corner throwing shit at the wall. And that's why they're going to intervene with a scare event so that nothing else gets out of control, because there are certain players that are still active, and most of them are not human. And so that's what we're dealing with. And that's what we're going to see play out. And so if that's an alien invasion, I don't think it's going to be War of the Worlds. I mean, even Ronald Reagan said it. He was like, hey, what's one thing that's going to unite all of us? Alien invasion, so that we are reminded that, you know, we're all one type of shit. I think people are going to see through even that. And think about this for everybody that's out there. All these endless wars that have existed for so long. How is it that every fucking country in the world can't get along, but they all said, you know what, we'll sign the Antarctic Treaty?
So remind me of the Antarctic Treaty. Tell people, if they don't know what it is.
So Antarctica is the quote unquote seventh continent on the planet. That is actually the gateway to the other lands. Alien does not mean from outer space. It means from land beyond, or lands beyond. And the current known world that most people live in is isolated through an ice wall with 3 different exits that goes into places like Atlantis, Lemuria, the Ancient Republic, Asgard, and beyond. And the reason no one's allowed out is because of the contracts that were signed a very, very long time ago. This is where the Bible comes in, and other ancient books. But there's been contracts that were signed through other wars that we are not privy to. But humans have been a slave race in this district for a very long time, and this is where you get other. This is where you get like the Maze Runner, Jennifer Lawrence films. Why can't I think of it?
Hunger Games. Yeah, Hunger Games.
This is where you get what's it called? Not Insurgent. There's all these books and all these movies, and they're all written about the different districts, and all of them have references to the dome. I mean, even go watch the King Kong movie from 2014 and how they have to get beyond the veil of the storms, and then they enter into all these different lands. This is very common knowledge amongst people with fuck you money and the elite and those who come from different bloodlines. It's just our history's been hidden and removed from us. And so what's beyond the ice wall, and there's entrances in Antarctica into inner Earth. There's inner Earth civilizations with very, very good beings and very, very bad ones. Some of which these population centers are what some have deemed God's political kingdom. And then some of it would be considered hell. And so all of this has been hidden from us. And we think that, we get the new cell phone and new fighter jets, and maybe someday we'll have space travel, but don't get cancer. Oh no, I mean, I'm not shitting on people, but cancer was created and it's in our food, and that's what causes it, because it didn't fucking exist before the 30s, and the Rockefellers took over our pharmaceutical and school system. I mean, think about it. The Education Act took effect. The Rockefellers started funding private education, telling all of these institutions that if you will quit teaching these holistic practices and start teaching petroleum-based medicine, we're going to fund your campus. We're going to fund your school. And then once cancer shows up, those motherfuckers create the National Cancer Society and Institute. It's like create the problem and then offer the solution. I know I'm throwing all this stuff out there, but it's no different. There's nothing new under the sun. Again, this is all about control. This is all designed to keep humanity at bay from who we really are and what's out there. I mean, you think James Cameron creating Avatar is a fucking accident? No.
Dude, a lot of these movies, man, like, it's like, how do you come up with an idea for a movie? Every thought that we've ever had has already been thought once before.
Sure.
So it's like, it's already out there. And how is it something that maybe you remember from a past life? A lot of people talk about that whole regard.
Yep.
Like the whole, listen, man, I've never been a big astrology guy, or like the whole like Chinese New Year type of guy, or what I've learned recently. I want to talk to you about this, numerology. Like a lot of this stuff is very spooky, especially the numerology. Like that is very. You want
to get rich, numerology.
Yeah, so I've been looking into it. I've been looking into it for the past few months. There's a guy, GG33, that's on the internet. He's very outspoken about all this stuff. But
Gary,
dude,
the numbers guy.
Yeah, Gary, the numbers guy.
Yeah,
dude, he's right about a lot of stuff. Like
he
puts
like
the receipts
9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, he puts all the receipts on Twitter. Like he'll be like, so I guess he had like 15 Twitter accounts that kept getting taken down. So he'd make a new one and have the same amount of followers right back to it. And he does these readings with people, does them online. You can see them. But he's pretty much said earlier this year, he goes, this is the year of the whatever
the rabbit.
Yeah, the year of the rabbit. So the year of the rabbit is a terrible year for a tiger, like the tiger. Last year was the year of the tiger. And he was like, you're going to see Andrew Tate blow up this year. Andrew Tate's going to blow up. He said Andrew Tate's going to go to jail for the end of the year or at the beginning of the new year. And he said this, dude, last January, before he even became famous, before everything. And, dude, look at what's happening. Like, that guy knows things.
He said come March, shit's going to get fucking nasty in the markets and around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
So it's
people don't realize we're sitting on a house of cards. Like I said earlier, if you were just to look at this from a face value standpoint and you didn't believe what I believe, and it was the system that we're in, it's still going to get fucking nasty no matter what. It's going to get worse, and people don't seem to realize that. Like I don't see us having the capacity to do this at some point later this year,
what to do the podcast?
to communicate like this.
Yeah. So, you've talked about that a lot, the grid going out. And I mean, think about it. If you wanted to shut down the world and legit scare people to death to where they might start thinking about taking their own lives and literally go into panic mode, you will turn off this little machine right here. And if you turn this machine off right here, it's
Everything
game
stops.
over for everybody. It's game over.
I don't think people
Game
realize that the kill switch is real, and these people. Now, granted, I genuinely believe that this is all staged, every last bit of it. I mean, I'm under the impression now that we're going to just have to walk through the fire, because if not, no one's going to wake up. Because again, I said it earlier, and I know it's harsh and it's rude, but most people are pussies. Most people are weak. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to look inward. They don't want to dig deep. They don't want to fight for anything. I am baffled by men who get so butthurt when their sports team loses. And it's like, hey, man, you know 2,000 something kids are going to die of starvation in this country this year? Get the fuck over yourself. There's real problems in the world, and this country is not ready for it. And I mean that. Most men in this country are not ready for it. And if they're not ready for it, and again, I don't care about any feminist that's watching this, go fuck yourself. I mean, that's where I'm at in life. At the end of the day, people aren't ready to lead in this country, and you always revert back to your lowest level of preparedness. And so if our lowest level of preparedness is Walmart and Uber Eats, I'm not worried about Russia and Chinese spy balloons. I'm worried about Joel down the street, who's a dipshit, who's going to do stupid shit because he's scared, because he's not ready, and he's never had to do anything hard in his life. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, and it's going to get to that point. I mean, it truly is. All right, so let's get back on path here. So we've got this year so far. What we've seen is we've seen the Chinese balloons.
Yep.
We're calling that they're going to be satellites. Back to that, the first satellite I believe that went into space was like in 57-ish, somewhere around that time. So it goes into space. How long can these satellites be in space before they have to come back down? How many of these things have came back down prior to us understanding them this year? And is it because our radar system has just recently gotten so good to now they're saying our radar system's so good that we can see things that we weren't able to see prior? That's what these unidentified aerial objects are. UAOs, not UFOs. People, they have changed the abbreviation so that when you Google it, you can't find it. It's UAOs now. It's not UFOs. Literally just go to that and you'll find all the same information.
It's not that our radar's getting better. It's the fact that technology to the consumer has opened up Pandora's box for what people can have access to. Because the technologies that really exist that are out there, it's not that they're limited, it's just that they're not given to the mass public. And so because we live in a Tesla terrarium, an electromagnetic universe, and space is the ocean, the waters above, the waters below, what they're trying to work on is interdimensional shit. And so all this satellite stuff is a moot point to me. I mean, I could care less. They've been doing high altitude weather balloons for years. And so you can imagine that they do have probably very long-term self-sustaining helium type balloons that go up and can, I mean, think about it. You're shooting things up. I mean, it works inside of a enclosed system that is self-sustaining and self-operating. So I'm not so worried about the satellites or the technology. What people need to start looking for, in my own personal opinion, are the portals, because they're starting to show up in the sky, and very soon they're going to start to show up on land. That is something that's coming next. And when
you say portal, what do you mean portal? Like, are you talking about like the movie? What was the movie that came out, like Stargate? Are you talking about that type of portal?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, dive into the portal a little bit.
So the Iraq War, not only was it a land grab post 9/11, but there was technology that has been hidden in Iraq because they have one of the most well-known historical stargates over there. And so that was one of the biggest reasons that America went over there, because again, you got to understand there's power factions around the whole world. Not everyone's working together. We have the Cheyenne Mountain Complex and Project Looking Glass, which is now under control of some very, very good military individuals along with CERN. And so even prior to that, these individuals have been going after different portals because these portals lead to different places and different beings. CERN was working with the portal that was in Iraq because from everything I've read, they were trying to reincarnate Nimrod, which is a pretty evil dude from the Bible. He was also a Nephilim or a giant. And so portals are going to be a big deal. I know people that work in dark magic, black magic, witchcraft. I mean, I've got books even here. Where they at? Where they at? I mean, this is the Book of the Law from Aleister Crowley. This is 777 and other Kabbalistic writings of Aleister Crowley. Again, nothing's new under the sun. And so if you've got people on low levels of magic who can open up portals for different beings, what does that say for how they've actually engineered it from a scientific standpoint so that they don't have to do it spiritually? They can do it scientifically and bypass certain things that has to be done on a human level. And that's where the Greys come in and some of these other malevolent beings that happen, Roswell and beyond. And so that's what I think we're getting ready to see next. Is I genuinely think that portals are coming down the pipe between now and 2025, because this all ends in 2025.
When you say it all ends in 2025, is in like game over 2025? Like
the reset will be complete. And what I mean by that is that's when we'll start to rebuild, from what I've gathered. That's when it'll start to, everyone's going to understand what's happened. And that's where who's ever left, because people are going to die during this. I genuinely believe that. Like, we're not going to be able to save everybody.
Right.
And so after that, I mean, we've got the great solar flash happening in 2024. It's happening now. It's just the peak of it's going to be next year when the next great solar eclipse takes place. And that goes across America. It happened in 2017, and then it comes back in 2024. And what most people don't understand, our world is so our history is so manipulated. Most people don't understand that if you were to go into the ancient writings, that America is actually the Israel and the Middle East of the Bible. And I got a map that I'm going to send you. I mean, people aren't ready for this kind of stuff because, again, what is up is down. The Baphomet, I mean, it's you can't see my other hand. This is their aim and their goal. The powers and principalities that have control over this earth are deceivers, and they operate out of confusion. And what better way to confuse people than just fucking rewrite how this entire place actually works, operates, and who we really are. I mean, you cannot tell me that parents who encourage their kids at 5 years old to identify with the different, like, up is down, left is, that's fucked. That is so out of bounds and out of left field. You can't even tell me that on just a normal level makes any sense to anybody. Talk about stupid. Talk about evil. Talk about messed up. And this is where, I mean, even, again, let's just go back to brass tacks. If everything is just House of fucking Cards on Netflix, then let's just be honest. No matter what, America as an empire is fucking over, folks. It's gone. It's dead. Because now we're getting into the full cultural demise of society. And that is the last straw before a country or an empire collapses. And we're there. And if we are just taking this, like I said, from a brass tacks, left is right, black is white, racism, feminism, patriarchy, like those are the problems in the world, then hey, dumb shits, look at who's running the free world. We're fucked. And another election cycle isn't going to fix it. Look at everybody in Congress. There's only 18 people in that place that I know are actually good. Everybody else is either dead, they're replaced, or they're playing a role. And I can't wait to find out if AOC's good. I'm betting on the fact that she is. She's just playing a character.
You think that she's actually a decent person and that she's
I
just
don't know
playing
that
doing the
she's.
script?
I think she's just playing a script. Nobody's that fucking stupid.
Yeah. Well,
So
you wouldn't think, and so I guess that's the whole leftist, conservatives like kind of mindset. It's like, normal critical thinking people look at the leftists. When I say the leftists, not like just Democrats, something like far left people,
sure.
completely screaming the other side, right? It's like, what are you literally like? What do you think about before you speak? Like,
No.
like you're talking about, kids can. A 5-year-old can determine what they want to be, and they can have a surgery, and you can't tell them anything, and they can go tell their teachers now, and that's a safe space. And if you go after them, they can get the authorities involved, and you can no longer be their parent. Like, what are we talking about? 5-year-old. I
Speaking
wouldn't make a
of,
decision when I was 21, not 5.
yeah.
It's like, come on, dude.
Well, even you just nailed something too. Most people don't realize that, and I regret this, and I'm working on it because I am doing the process to have my own independent sovereignty as a human, to where I don't identify with any nation. And most people don't know that that's a real thing. You will have a choice when your baby is born, whether to give them a social security number, whether to register them with the state. In my advisement, don't do it. The world's going to change before any of that's going to matter, but just don't do it, so that your kid is your kid, and that kid is their own human, and they control their life. Most people don't realize this, and it's going to come out. If you took the vaccine, you are now property of said companies, because of what the mRNA and the contracts and the writing that is deep in there. You can go look this shit up. You are now technically considered a GMO.
What's a GMO?
A genetically modified organism.
Aha.
And so this is the shit that people don't realize. They're coming for your souls, man. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm a political atheist. I'm a libertarian at heart, an anarchist. I don't give a fuck what you do. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you want to, identify as a jar of peanut butter. I don't give a shit. But when it starts to dictate policy, and this goes on both sides of the aisle, because at the end of the day, I think most people are centrists. They just want to live a good life, and they want to be left alone, and they want to raise their family, and they want to enjoy. Again, we're hobbits, man. We're simple. We were here to know and be known and enjoy each other and the fruits of our labor. Life should not be this hard, but we are a slave race right now. And so for anyone out there that thinks that I'm some kind of Nazi fascist bigot, I'm not. I'm angry at the system that we're in. And for all you people that have been brainwashed and duped into believing all of this cultural appropriation bullshit and identity politics, like, you got to step out of this stuff and start looking at things from a spiritual level, because it's only then that you can realize that politics and money are actually a very, very small byproduct of what's really taking place.
So, what is the most important event that you've seen in 2023? Like, there's all of these, the false flags. You've got the balloons falling. You've got the UFOs. Now, literally, I've seen flatbed trucks, videos of people driving by these flatbed trucks that are being escorted by 10s and 20s of armed vehicles, and they're tarped, and they look very UFO-ish. I'm not saying they are, but it looks that way. And it's not 1952. You can't hide this stuff anymore. Like, if there's cell phones, you're going to get a cell phone camera, and you're going to see this if you're driving on the side of the road. You've got the hazmat trucks blowing up. There's been more hazmat issues, like explosions, in the past 4 weeks than we've had in the past 50 years. So it's like that, and that's coming off of the railroad, like the everybody having the issues with the railroad, the strike at the railroad, the government getting involved with the railroad. What is the biggest event that's happened in 2023 that makes you think this is keeping us on pace and this is what could possibly happen? What's the big one for you?
It actually happened yesterday, the day before, and it's not what people think. It just confirms what's actually happening. Donald Trump, to back up, the current acting president, Joe Biden, and FEMA said, no, we're not going to give East Palestine, Ohio aid. We're not going to intervene, and we're not going to help. Well, then Donald Trump said he's going to East Palestine today, tomorrow. He's coming in the coming days or weeks. And FEMA said, okay, yeah, we're going to bring aid. What people don't understand is there is in the Philippines post World War II, or during World War II, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot what took place, but the Philippines were overtaken by an illegitimate government. And it had to do with maritime law and common law. And the acting prime minister of the Philippines, with the 10 military heads that were still alive at the time, wrote a document and signed it saying, as long as this man is alive, so is our government. And they put him on a submarine, and he started puddle jumping all around the world. It took him weeks to get back to America. They sent him to America, and they asked for America's aid. And they gave, I think it was Eisenhower, the document showing that these generals signed it, that their country had been taken over by an illegitimate government and that they needed help. And so the U.S. military came in and actually helped, and they restored their government. What most people don't understand is before Donald Trump left office in 2020, through the executive orders that he signed in maritime law and common law, that same situation took place. And Donald Trump handed over the current power structures to FEMA and the military. I forgot their names. It was Paul something. I'll find them and I'll send them to you. But those two individuals who run FEMA and run certain factions of our military were left in charge via this document. And Trump went on with the nuclear codes to remain as the commander-in-chief. And so that's when I saw that yesterday, that he's going, and now FEMA said, okay, yeah, we're going to bring aid. What I'm getting at is the military and no one in this country answers to fucking Joe Biden. He's a puppet, and not in the sense that most people think. The dude literally has no say. They have no control over anything that's going on. And you're going to start to see that with the military. The military turned their backs to the president's motorcade on the inauguration day. That's an act of treason. Every single one of those men should have been thrown in prison. But guess who they were turning their back on? An illegitimate president of the corporation of the District of Columbia.
Okay, now I see where you're going with the whole corporate. And I looked that up as you were talking. You're correct. It was literally Grant is the one that signed the proposal for it, right? But we are just a corporation, and that is what DC is pretty much. You can go look it up. I did. I looked it up.
Well, it's not like
it's not hidden.
It's defunct, and I've got friends that live there. I've got friends that are up there all the time. We communicate. Oh, and by the way, River Phoenix is alive, and I speak to him monthly.
Who was the River Phoenix? Oh, was that an actor? What happened? Did this guy die? Okay, I'm confused. What was he in?
Either way.
I got it. Never mind. I got it. Go ahead.
If you were to go into the Nuremberg war manual and how our military war crimes operates, you are not allowed to hold military tribunals on American soil. So why is it that the whole January 6th bullshit, which was just a narrative to force people away from what was actually happening with the military tribunals that were being put together, they locked down DC, they boarded it up, they put gates everywhere, and they started holding military tribunals. All this has been filmed. A lot of these people are dead, and they're still going on. The reason they did it in DC, one, because of all the underground tunnels that are there and everything that they're connected to, from sex trafficking to other fucked up shit. But beyond that, the District of Columbia is not a part of the United States. And so they can hold military tribunals there. And it's the easiest place to get all those rat bastards under one roof and get the job done swiftly without the American people thinking what's going on. January 6th was all staged. And it has nothing, it was even staged by the good guys. People don't even realize that. It was a massive distraction, not only to flip the narrative on its head to show people how much this Marxist cabal hates freedom and hates patriots and hates people who, like I said earlier, whatever your creed, whatever your faith, religion, your sexuality, your orientation, who gives a shit? If you are someone who does good and wants the best and operates inside of this country freely and is a contributing member of society, good for you. They hate all that, and they hate you thinking for yourself. And so it was a staged event, but everything that's taken place in DC is because it is not a part of the United States. And from everything I've heard during this scare event, 34 places around the entire world that are symbolically relevant, like the Vatican, like DC, Stonehenge, all of these places that have malevolent intent and bad energy, they're going to blow them all up, and the whole world's going to see it. And people are going to think we're under attack, but in reality, they're sending a message and they're getting rid of these places because most people don't realize that blood is wildly important. And not to get too in depth or too spiritual, but our genetic makeup tells us everything. It tells us who we are, where we came from. Our DNA is wildly special. And that's why when blood spills, it's so wildly important, because it goes beyond the physical realm. And things that we have done to the Native Americans, those things are still wildly held over our head in this country on a spiritual level. Whether people want to believe this or not, my conclusions, and I usually just keep my mouth shut because I don't have time, and I'm trying to make sure that I can take care of my family and the people that I'm around when shit hits the fan. But whether people know this or not, if you go into Baal worship, Moloch worship, even in scripture, I walk through the valley of the shadow of the death, but I will fear no evil. If you were to take that context of when Jesus is speaking on that, there's a mountain in Jerusalem, in that area of the world, where the sun sets so early because of the shadow that's cast on the mountains, the valley of the shadow of death. But this is where people who practice Baal worship were. And Jesus talked about how he would walk through that valley and fear no evil, because they would kidnap people and sacrifice them ritualistically. This practice has never left the world. It's just done in private, it's done in secret and in high places. And this is going to get me a lot of shit, and I could care less, but abortion, whether people realize this, abortion is an ancient Moloch Baal ritualistic practice of sacrificing babies. And we have turned it into a women's right progressive movement of body autonomy guised under this political narrative, when in actuality it is a massively evil practice. And no one wants to go down that rabbit hole. No one will talk about it with me, because they know that it's going to piss a lot of people off, and ultimately it is fucked up and it is evil. And we can go down so many rabbit holes, because if I were to tell you what really took place with our government post ML King's murder and the segregation movement and post Jim Crow laws, and what our country did to the black community via all of that, man, I can't wait. I can't wait for the black culture and the black community in this country to find out what these people have actually tried to do to them and not for them. Because when they do, they're going to take to the streets in a manner that they never have. And I am going to gladly welcome it. Because it's not going to be against you or me. It's not going to be against the citizens of this country. It's going to be against the establishment. That's what's coming.
Right.
You're going to see people in the streets soon. And you're going to see everyday average Joe say, I'm done with this, because of, I mean, think about it, Gunner. We're dealing with people who were murdered via cancer. We're dealing with people who were murdered because of war. We're dealing with people who were murdered because they were lied to about their health. We're dealing with the genocide of a race, and the experiment of a race. Because these beings that are malevolent, mind you, the whole premise behind this is they're not eternal, and they can't create shit. And everything that's inside of our DNA and our soul has the answer. And and if they can, that's where transhumanism comes from. If they can reverse engineer it and figure it out, then they too will be like God. Why do you think we're hated so much? We're like God, bro. We're so special, and people have no clue.
So when you say the angry like deities and the angry spirits and the angry people that are here, you're saying those are the beings, those are like the things that are not from here, that were not created here by God, don't have our DNA, don't have the minerals, don't have everything that's made up that everyone on this planet's made up of. They're jealous of that, and they're trying to figure out ways to extract that or get that or recreate that. Is that maybe where CRISPR is coming from on the Chinese side?
100%.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense of why we would do that aspect, because you don't see CRISPR being like, hey, I made this awesome baby. It's LeBron James and Candace Parker. It's going to be the next Michael Jordan times 10. You don't see that. It's like, here's CRISPR. We're not telling anybody what it is, but we've already created humans.
It's transhumanism. AI, and everything that they've already done with cloning. Clonings exist for a long ass time. I mean, they even were very upfront about cloning Dolly the sheep. And if they can clone a sheep and make it common knowledge like 20 years ago, I promise you this much, bro. Like, even some of these celebrities and high-ranking people, a lot of them have been cloned multiple times. And so I don't know how all of it works, but I know it exists. I've read a lot about it, but it's not necessarily the one of the things that I put a ton of energy into.
Very interesting. All right, so you saw the one event that kind of made you say, "Oh, that's right," and that's Trump going up to East Palestine. Another thing that was stuck out to me, the bombing happened, and I say the bombing, the railroad ran off the tracks. It was going to have big brake issues, and literally we bombed it. Right? There's a mushroom cloud that you can see from space, and it is very wide. Probably hitting about a 500-mile square radius, which just coincidentally would affect every river and every major body on the East Coast. And now you're starting to hear about hazmat trucks spilling on the West Coast, where there's not as many bodies of water, but they can do it in a different way. Regardless, this happened on February. The news until February 14th, 15th, 16th, maybe. And all people were talking about were the balloons and UFOs. So that's where I go back to the whole government thing. I don't believe anything that anybody's telling me, because if they're telling me to look at the right hand, I know it's the left hand I need to really be looking at. And the best thing about Twitter and about Elon is all this stuff doesn't go away. That was the place to go find all the information, because he doesn't really limit you from putting up whatever you want to put up now. Also want to talk on the Twitter files with you as well for real quick. And you can tell me when to shut up or when you need to get off. I mean, we can do this forever. We got all evening. I told Tia, I was like, "Hey, I'm going downstairs. Me and Chris are going to talk. Probably going to be 2 hours or so." She was like, "I know." It is what it is. But so talk about the I guess the hazmat part. What do you see there? Because it's very strange that we would have more hazmat events in a 4-week time span that were swept under the rug than we would have in the past 50 years. Is it just because of coverage? Is it just because more people can actually post about it? Or is it a little bit more coincidental than we should be thinking?
Well, Pete Buttigieg, who is the head of transportation in this country, who is more than capable of that position, for sure. Yes, Barry Wimberly, I am for real. Pete Buttigieg says that stuff like this happens all the time, and it does. It does. Trains, have issues. Transportation has issues. Not like this. I mean, this is every day. We've got something, blowing up, spilling. What's unique about it is in the drops. There is a phrase that the future proves past. Okay. And so from the time that these drops took place in October of 2017 until now, they have been outlining events that are so specific and detailed that when they do come to pass and have come to pass, it's not coincidence. It can't be coincidence. Everything that's happening right now has been talked about. The trains, watch the water, every bit of this. And beyond that, I think it was February 15th. This is post right after the trains. It said, because the Epstein files are coming out, you've got the COVID narrative completely imploding. You have our own government is finally, people are recognizing it's entirely incapable. We're on the brink of nuclear war and World War III. We've got spy balloons in the air. So the narratives are falling apart, and it made it very clear, be mindful over the next 10 days. False flags everywhere. More of the same shit's going to happen for the next 10 days. Dude, on my Twitter today, I kid you not, in France, in Italy, in China, more warehouses, more trains. This isn't just in America. It's all over the world. This is happening. This is a systematic attack on the world. And honestly, if it isn't for the coming intervention and the grace of God and certain quantum technologies, we're fucked. I don't think people realize the consequences of what's happening on an environmental standpoint when this affects our food supply chain, and what this is going to do to our soil, and what this is going to do to production. I mean, this is bad. This is bad on so many levels. I mean, what this is going to do to the eastern seaboard, from what I've read, is catastrophic. This is Fukushima, but worse. And so people need to be aware that get food, get water, make plans, and be ready to move until this is over. This is bad, dude. I don't think people realize it. It's not going to get better. For anybody thinks that this is just going to pause and this is just another election cycle bullshit type stuff, it's not. Like, we're in the thick of it. We're going into the end game.
Well, you have the environmental people come out and they say, "Hey, everything's fine. We're not detecting much in East Palestine. Go back to your house," right? After they told everybody to pretty much leave, evacuate, get out of town. It's also weird that there was a novel about this written in the 80s and a movie that came about it in 2022 on Netflix. it's all funny how like the pandemic came out right before the pandemic. White noise came out right before the Ohio thing. It's just weird timing, coincidentally, not saying conspiracy or anything, just weird timing, whatever. Anyway, so they're telling everybody to go back home, do your thing. When there's videos on Twitter of people saying the water's okay, there's no dead fish in the water, of these environmental people picking the dead fish up out of the water. There's videos online of people going to the water. They say there's no chemicals in the water. We killed all the chemicals off the top of the water. They throw a log into the water, into the creek bed, hits the bottom of the creek bed. Now at the bottom, you start to see these like holographic rainbow type colors come up, which is what? Chemicals in the creek bed. So the chemicals are not burned out of the water. If you just burn off the top with a certain temperature, it's sitting in the creek bed. It's going to be there for, I don't know, years, hundreds of years, thousands. Like that is now a part of that soil in that creek bed. So like the water is going to keep running. The Ohio River system connects to every river system on the East Coast. So it's like, at what point is this going to be bad? We might not experience it now. That's what everybody needs to understand. COVID isn't going to affect you now unless it, killed you, a loved one, or someone close to you. And yes, it was real in the fact that it was a disease and it did kill people, obviously. But regardless if it's COVID or something else that did it, people died during that time. What happened to the flu during that time? I don't know what happened to the flu, but people died. Numbers were similar to the flu-ish, right? Get into it. But regardless, at what point are we not just going to kind of wake up and be like, all right, if the government's telling us something, don't believe it. Just kind of think for yourself. If you see something that's bad, probably don't get around that. This stuff's going to affect us in 20 years, more so it's going to affect us currently right now. I don't know. So like, what's your thoughts about the water, the chemicals, hey, it's safe, go back home. Barry's back. Let's see what we got here. I got to see Barry in the building here. That's not entirely true. Things have been going on like this environmentally wise for years. Do you know what the Tar Creek Superfund was about? Do you know, Chris, what the Tar Creek Superfund was about? Well, go ahead and answer that, and I'll find out some information about the Tar Creek Superfund.
I mean, again, Pete Buttigieg, who was corrected by the White House, saying, well, he was not correct, and that's false information or misinformation, mind you. Yes, things like this happen all the time, but not like this and not on this scale. That's what I'm trying to get at. How is it that every damn day a chicken factory's blowing up, a food processing factory's blowing up, a train's derailing, chemicals are being spilled into the water and into the land, and it's not just in this country, it's around the entire world. So no, this isn't business as usual.
Okay, so let's get a little bit of information here about the Superfund site. Tar Creek was added to the National Priority Superfund list in 1983. How big is it? It's 1,188 square miles. It's located in Ottawa County, Oklahoma, within the tri-state district of lead and zinc mining in northeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri, and southeastern Kansas. What happened? Once in the mines, the water became acidic and laced with heavy metals, including lead, zinc, cadmium, and arsenic. Eventually, the mines became so full of tainted water that it began to pour out of the mine shafts, air vents, and exploratory boreholes, poisoning the adjacent land and Tar Creek. So I'm trying to understand where we're going with this, Barry. Kind of, if you want to write out in the comments, where are you going with this? So like you're saying this is not the first time an environmentally toxic thing has gotten to our water supply. I guess my question would be, this is a creek. This is not a riverbed that runs into the entire East Coast. So you could probably keep this under wraps and contained and just kind of deal with it, kind of like what was the place over at the Chernobyl or whatever, that whole thing that happened. So like you could do that there, not as much population, kind of get everybody out, deal with the thing. Don't go over there. Don't go to Area 51. Don't go where we shot nuclear bombs off, blah, blah, blah. The town of Pfizer, Oklahoma was bought out by the government. So, okay. Or I'm trying to, Barry, are you on our side here or are you not on our side? Because literally, like, if there's environmental waste going somewhere and you're saying it's not a big deal, but then the government buys the town that it could affect, probably a big deal. Not just saying the government hasn't bought any towns in my area. Just saying, like, so if they start buying up East Palestine, it's probably going to be a reason to maybe leave.
They've been, I can't remember what it's called, but long story short, who's Norfolk or whatever, the railroad company? Yeah. They're trying to swindle people. Yeah, they're trying to swindle people by signing certain paperwork that pretty much remisses them from any fault. by coming in to survey the land to make sure that the people's water or soil is okay. By signing it with a surveyor, it actually, they're signing away the ability to sue Norfolk Southern. And so once again, big corporations coming in, being shitheads, being shady, and putting the little man in a position where their hands are tied.
Now I'm going to pull up some pictures of this because I've never heard of this Tar Creek or whatever, but it's pretty sweet. So here's what it looks like. The only thing you see is pretty much just disgusting looking, muddy looking water.
Looks like some Mississippi red clay.
Yeah, so like you see it right here. I mean, here it is, U.S. property, no trespassing. There you go. But why the Superfund work hasn't saved anything for 40 years? Yeah, man. So here's another thing. Why do we not know about this? Unless you, like, even Barry, right? So Barry, obviously you've done some research on this stuff. You've heard of it, or whether you were around when it happened, or you just kind of caught wind of it, whatever. More people should know about hazardous environmental areas in the United States. I don't know, maybe so we don't go there. Like that would be one of the reasons why I would think, I'm just saying it's been happening for years that no one paid attention to it. And like Ohio, the government kept saying nothing was affecting. Gotcha. Okay. So you're on our side. You're not coming at us from like a negative perspective. You're pretty much saying nobody pays attention to this stuff. Yes, this has been happening for years, kind of in agreement, or at least maybe not in complete agreement, but yes.
Classic Barry.
Classic Barry. Listen, Barry jumps on these shows and it comes around and comments quite a bit. So yeah, first of all, appreciate you joining our conversation. 90 minutes in, you're still listening to this. Is pretty awesome, badass. Little Pigeon River right there by y'all in Tennessee. LinkedIn user just popped in. Anna Stone, it's my homie right there. So is that another one? Is that another toxic? Chris, are we pretty much in an environmental wasteland? Is that what we're doing? He lives.
I don't know. I don't know how all this is going to pan out. I just know that again, this isn't going to stop, and it's going to get worse. And people need to start auditing their current circumstances across the board. I mean, I don't think people realize that the economy is going to crash this year. There's no way around it. That's not some conjecture. That's not some like premonition. It is going to default. That's coming next. And so this isn't going to be, we've seen the drips and the drips and the drips. We're getting ready to get hit by wave after wave after wave. And so how this affects us, I don't know. But I would, if I was everybody, I mean, I posted it the other day, you need to start putting yourself in a position to have food insurance. You need to make sure that, again, you can take care of you and your family. Because a lot of people, again, are wildly unaware of what's actually happening in the world around them. And they think that Chili's is still going to be open at some point in the same capacity. I just don't see that coming down the pipe. And I'm not here to instill fear in people. I mean, I bust my ass every day. I have dreams and passions that I pursue all the time, diligently. But I'm also not a moron. And I can see the writing that's on the wall. And my hope is that when this is all over, the things that I've been building and have built, well, there's still going to be a place for them after all of this. But for now, people need to get wise, and they need to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and putting themselves in a position to hunker down and to be helpful. Because I promise, if you're unprepared during all of this, you're not going to help anybody. Because let me ask you this, Gunnar. Do poor people help anybody?
No.
Are they helpful? No.
No.
And that's not shitting on people who are struggling in that sense. But having resources and being prepared and having a plan puts you leaps and bounds ahead of most people in any scenario in life. And this is no different. And so if you don't know how to use a gun, dude, I got a buddy. He was a buddy. I got an old friend of mine who literally has never shot a gun, and he's 34 years old. I'm sitting here scratching my head thinking, how the have you never shot a gun? You need to know how to use your weapons. You need to know your home. You need to, I mean, again, I tell people all the time, food's expensive right now. Long-term storable food is astronomical from what it was 6 months ago. Trust me, I've been buying it. I've seen it. I've looked. There are some very practical and affordable ways to stock your pantries, to make sure that you got 30, 60, 90 days on hand for you and yours. And that's BPA food grade buckets from Home Depot. And that's some Mylar bags and some oxygenizers. And you go get yourself as much rice and beans as you can fucking think of, because pinto beans have 90 of the 100 and something minerals our body needs. You need 5 grams of protein a day to survive. These are all things that you can mitigate in a worst case scenario. But think about the peace of mind that you'll have if you put yourself in a position to know that, okay, worst case scenario, my family's good for 30 days. And dude, that's a bare minimum.
Look at this. Dude, so this is fascinating. I'm looking into it as he's talking too. Literally, this happened in 2009 and the town dissolved during that time. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting right there. Yeah, I'm with you on the food supply. Like, the big thing is the government doesn't want you living on your own. They want you, you know, they want you to have the shot, get the shot. They want you to have a cell phone, get the cell phone. They want you within 5G range, be around 5G. They want you taken care of. They want you to not be able to think you can buy your land and your property when you really can't buy your land and your property. You're having to rent your land and property from them or still pay tax. The government's going to be involved no matter what. The last thing they want are people that go off the grid. Those are the scariest people to them. Those are the people that can enact change in this country per se. But those people don't have the loudest voice because they're so minute and there's so few of them out there. So you've been preaching this, and I'll go back and tell people, you've been talking about this since 2018. That's when I really kind of got to know you. You've been saying this stuff since, and everything is slowly starting to come true. If you're not a big Alex Jones fan, listen, I get it. That guy might be batting 500. He might not be 800. He's batting 500. He said a lot more crazy shit and been a lot more polarizing on the internet. And maybe the Sandy Hook thing was the one that got him over the top, and that's the one that pressed all the buttons, and people just said that's enough. Take that away. The dude has been right about way too much, and you would hope that he would be wrong about these things. He's not, and they just keep coming true. It's like, if more people keep saying the thing that's wrong and the wrong thing keeps being proven true, at what point can we stop believing the people that are saying everything's wrong and just believe that everything they say is misinformation? If someone tells you you're spewing misinformation, they're probably the one spewing misinformation. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
people just need to, at this point, people need to start truly thinking for themselves. They need to audit what they believe. They need to audit why they believe what they believe. People, I know that most people aren't like me. And I am here for a very specific role and a reason. And soon enough, that'll be understood. I'm not asking people to, read the books that I read. What I can encourage you is to audit your core values and dig deep on who you are. Because if you take away your titles and your possessions and the things that you cling to, who the fuck are you? And if you don't know that outside of those things, then you got some work to do. And then beyond that, right now is a time to dig deep in a sense of community and kindness, and not necessarily giving back, but people need to be prepared to work together in ways that they haven't before, because that's the only way we're going to get out of this. Right now, the greatest fear of the power structures that have controlled this world is not just the mass awakening. It's the mass awakening and all of us working together. And I know that sounds like some kumbaya shit, but it's very real. I mean, the movie A Bug's Life and those fucking ants against those grasshoppers is so true and on point. And my question to people all the time is, what is it going to take for you to quit being a little bitch and wake up and start fighting for your family, start fighting for your community, start fighting for your values, and start getting on the front line? And you know where that starts? It starts local, man. I'm telling you, I mean, my kid is not old enough to be in school, but if he was, you bet your sweet ass I'd be homeschooling him right now. And if not, I'd be at every single teacher parent board meeting, and I would be creating committees, not with the government, not with the school system, with my local community. And I would dictate what my kids are being taught, what's happening inside that school system, you name it, because that's where it starts, on those local levels. I mean, there are people on these local levels that I see it coming down the pipe to where you're going to start seeing them forcefully removed from their seats because they no longer serve the people. I don't think the masses understand this corruption is not just at the highest levels. It's all the way down to our local levels. I mean, this shit runs deep. The swamp is real and it's deep. And my encouragement to everybody is to start linking arms, start finding like-minded people. And if you are surrounded by people who no longer serve you or don't have the same values as you, go get new friends. It's okay. Even so people who don't agree with me, don't fucking hang out with people like me. Don't associate with people like me. Don't muddy the water. Like that's where we're at. The lines have been drawn in the sand, and I can promise you this, Gunner. There are going to be people who kill themselves because they were on the wrong side of history. I know that's harsh, and it's a heavy, heavy thing to consider. But when all of this comes out, people are going to realize that they were complicit. People are going to realize that they encouraged some really, really messed up shit. And that is going to weigh heavy. And my hope is that people hear the best of me and that no one and nothing's too far gone ever. So right now, we don't need people beating themselves up or each other up. We need people to take accountability, audit themselves. And if we're wrong, if I'm wrong, admit that shit, ask for help, ask for support, put yourself in a position to have like-minded people or people you look up to, believe in, and trust to link arms with. Because guess what? None of us are getting out of this shit alive, ultimately, at the end of the day. And again, for all you people out there that want to be right, go fuck yourself. I'm not in this to be right. I'm in this for the truth, okay? And I'm in this for people to find some solace and some peace of mind with who you are and why you're here. Because at the end of the day, a win at any age is a win. And if you're old and you feel like your time has passed and maybe something I'm talked about resonates with you, dig into that. And I promise you, I mean, again, if you find yourself at the end of the road and the end of your rope at the end of the world and you find people, then you're going to be in good company.
So I guess, we're going to go to the other side of it real quick.
Sure.
To the people that I talk to this with, let's just say I'm at my office, I'm talking to people on the floor. There's a few people that be like, hey, Gunner, they're talking conspiracies. Would you come over here and let's talk about them a little bit? Yeah, man, I'd love to hear conspiracies. I don't like to talk too high level into detail with them because I don't know how to speak it as fluently as you. But I do know like a little bit like, 9/11, all this stuff. I know the basic conspiracies, right? So I like to go listen to other people's thoughts on conspiracies and they immediately just shut it down. No way. No way this could be true. Those same people that immediately shut down some conspiracies are also like 100% convinced and truly believe in the religious aspect of life, right? So
Sure.
It's like, and that, the other people would say maybe that's a conspiracy. Maybe that's, where's the facts there when it comes written text from thousands of years ago, stories that have been telephoned after time, you believe those. So like there's two different sides of the spectrum. But for the people that say none of this is true, it's just a big coincidence, it is as simple as black and white. It is as simple as left and right. It is as simple as just things just happen and civilizations get to the point where they just can't really control people. And this is what happens when you can't control people and then you try to over control people and then people start to think that there is a conspiracy. What do you say to those people? Like the simple-minded, non-critically thinking people that just believe what the mainstream media tells them?
Sometimes people are too far gone. Even when all this is done, it's been told that 4 to 6% of the population will still never believe this. They'll still never believe, even when it's brought to them. Cognitive dissonance is a real thing. And I think some of these people are NPCs. They're non-playable characters in this whole fucking thing. And so I'm not here to disregard a human life or someone's value. But at the end of the day, there's no point in beating a dead horse. And so some people are just so fucking lost and gone that there's just no point. And my job is not to convince those people. My job is to help those people who are willing, like I said, to dig deep and they don't need to go down the rabbit holes that I do. But again, if you're here in this time, in this season of humanity, then it's for a reason, it's for a purpose. And so to get through all this, my hope is to keep people alive and out of danger and safe. I'm going to let the aftermath and what has already been positioned do the work for me. I have accepted the fact that it's worth being a John the Baptist, a boy that cries wolf, the crazy fucking friend or uncle for a short bit. Because one, I know that I'm sitting on generational wealth, so I'm not worried about that shit. I know that if none of this happens, I'm going to be well off and fucking fine. And I don't need social media in the future. I'm just going to take my family and go be in the woods and enjoy the mountains and the lakes that aren't polluted. And I'm going to raise my son and hopefully future kids. And I'm going to be a badass dad. And I'm going to enjoy my life. But I just don't see that being the case when it comes to the things that I'm doing. And so, again, and for all of those people who, I have learned that people who are religious, and I'm a very studied, religious, spiritual person, you would probably assume or say, most of that shit has been stolen and hidden from you. I mean, I look at Christians. If you're a part of the Southern Baptist or Methodist denomination, you're a part of a cult. And I can prove it to you and show you. And that's going to sting. If you're a part of the charismatic movement, you're a part of witchcraft. And you don't know it. Like, I can run circles around these people and what they think they believe. And I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to prove people wrong. I could give a shit. My job is to hopefully open some people's eyes and they can understand that maybe their life isn't what they were told, and maybe their programming and indoctrination doesn't serve them. Even for Christians, do you know that if you're a Christian, you've got 16 books that were taken out during the Council of Nicaea, and then you have 90 books that have been stolen from you in the Ethiopian Bible. And mind you, do you know that Ethiopia, that this year in Ethiopia, it's 2015?
What?
Yeah.
No
And
clue.
most people don't know that. So there's 3 calendars that operate in the world, and this is where numerology plays a big factor, Gunner, and you can go deeper on this. There's the Julian, the Gregorian, and then the lunar calendar, or the real calendar. The Earth's true calendar, and this is where flat Earth comes in, because everything's a clock, the Fibonacci sequence, what's up is down. I mean, again, I can talk on this, 369. That we have 13 months in our year. The new year is April 1st. We're coming up on it. We have 13 months in a year. Every month is 28 days, and then we have one day, one singular day. This is where leap year comes in on other calendars. And if you were to go buy those calendars, we're in the year like 1,000. And this is where all the decodes come in, from Mr. Poole to the Twitter files, the individuals that I think are high active players that have just been anonymous. But they're acting and working with numerology based on all 3 calendars. And the people that are smart, who have been patient, have finally decoded certain things. And we are in that time frame where we're in the end game. It's not the end of the world, but we are living through 2 merged timelines. We're living through the humanity's optimal timeline. At the same time, we're living through the biblical tribulation. And that's why shit is messy as hell right now. And so for all the religious folks who do not have the mental or spiritual capabilities to separate yourself from your beliefs, and you are holding on to your pie in the sky, Sunday school, coffee donut, jerk off Jesus, good for you. But I promise you, good luck. Because there is no rapture. And if there is one, it's going to be Project Bluebeam, fake alien invasion bullshit. Even that was mustered up and created. And some of the greatest scholars in Christianity who preach it know it. People are duped, man. And so I can't help them. All I can do is point them in the right direction, and hope that they find themselves, they find God, and they find some solace along the way.
Dude, okay, first of all, did you know that the Ethiopian New Year starts on September 11th?
Yeah.
How weird is that? Anyway,
Well,
so I had no clue about this.
A lot of individuals believe that Jesus was born on September 11th.
Okay, so the numerology aspect goes into that. Now I'm starting to wonder if the guy in numerology actually uses this calendar more so than he uses the other calendar. Yeah, so very interesting there. So we got a couple questions from some listeners, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. We'll kind of go into question mode. So my man right here said, don't you think the government has too many people to hold a secret? And this is where my brain goes to also. It's like, how many people can be in on something? I think what you're saying is it's not the government. There's a higher, level. Like I always say, if the president is the president, who runs the president? Okay. Who runs those people? And I'm always looking for the top of the pyramid. So obviously there is an elite. And since the world's currency revolves around money, it's someone obviously that controls that. That's why it goes back to like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and that type of mindset of the elites, and everything kind of runs into the same blood of a few families, right? I mean, you talk about that too. So he says, don't you think the government has too many people to hold a secret? I would say yes, they do, but it's not them holding a secret.
Here's the thing. Money does a lot of strange things to people. So does power, so does fear. But beyond that, I would go research breakaway civilizations, because the secret space programs and the breakaway civilizations that work hand in hand with these power structures that oppose each other, they're the ones that are actually making decisions. These are the people that die in combat in the movies that we see, and then they end up going and being fucking Jack Reacher. These are the super soldiers. These are the people that are born and bred into that life. It's no different than the elite. They keep things within the bloodlines. There's a lot of these breakaway civilizations, and there's a lot of these factions of people groups that are born into this and primed for it. And so for all these low level, I mean, I even know someone, not very well or not personally, but who they're related to, I know very, very well. And to hear even their comments and their role in the government, knowing that they even say they've got a pretty high security clearance and they still don't know shit. And so, yeah, I mean, I can see your point there, but even running a company of 11 people for 5 years, 8 of those people don't know shit.
Okay.
And they know, and they still know things, but they don't know shit of what's really, could be, should be, is kind of thing. And so I get your point, but it's much deeper than that.
All right, so here we go. So this is Anna Stone. You can't see who this is. Anna's, somebody I talk to, a few times a week. She comes in coaching, freight brokering type stuff. Love her. She's a great person. Anyways, so she says, Chris, you say you're trying to help people. Do you believe that your outspokenness is a call to action? She also follows it up with, what are you hoping to motivate listeners to do? So let's kind of answer both those in one. So is your outspokenness a call to action?
What does she mean a call to action? I'm confused with the question.
Do you believe that your outspokenness is a call to action? I guess.
I mean, I would hope that my bravado and my brashness and the fact that I could give two shits ultimately the outcome of how people feel. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a call to action. I hope that that people leave, whether it's watching the things I post or share or create content-wise or doing things like this. I would hope they would leave here and, again, audit their lives, audit who they are on a spiritual, personal level, and then audit the world around them so that they can make better, critical, thought-provoking decisions.
Okay, so there's the answer to that. Go back one more time here. So we got this right here. My man right here comes on here and he says, I heard earlier that you talked about flat Earth. Now, this is where me and you do just read a little bit. Flat Earth, something that I can't just be kept secret. I get that. I think what you're saying, right, is that, and that's why I said you're getting more into the dome, like this is a kind of engulf type of thing. If you look at flat Earth, yes, of course, there's ridges in the Earth and it has like the whole thing or whatever, right? But also, no one has ever really went far enough into space to be able to prove that space is forever.
We've never broken through the Van Allen belt. I think I'm mispronouncing it. And they talk about how that's like a radiation belt that we can't get past. And yet we went to the fucking moon. Everything that they've positioned and put together, it is literally just trying to guise the firmament. And so when you say that you couldn't keep it a secret, you go in a plane at 36,000 feet and tell me where the fucking curve is, buddy. How is it that all of these Masonic, high-profile level people in sports, celebrities, including Donald Trump, has made it very clear that the Earth is flat? We live in a terrarium. And if you look at biblical cosmology, or the ancient Hebrew cosmology, it does look like a sphere. But where we are inside of that sphere is a non-linear flat plane. And so at the end of the day, most of the world has never flown on a plane. I know that's hard to believe. A lot of people don't use technology. the same capacity that Americans do. You also got to think about it. So many people are inundated with their day-to-day lives that they just believe whatever the fuck's going on their TV. So yes, it can be kept a secret. It has been kept a secret, and they do a very good job of it because most people are docile cucks who don't give a shit.
So Anna Stone came in. Listen, she might know more than I actually than we know. We might start talking some conspiracies in the morning. She hit you with the Allen radiation belt, and we've talked about that in previous podcasts, the ones that I posted earlier on here. But Barry also came back in. You know, he's game. He's in the one world order. He sees it kind of an elitist going that direction. That's what you've talked about. If you think about what you're saying, and you go into the like the UFOs, like it's going to take a UFO type of an event to bring the world together. Well, what is the world coming together look like? One world order. I've always said, like, if we ever became like Team Planet, Team Earth, like what's that look like? Well, you think that's going to look good, right? You think that's a good thing. But if you only have a couple people running 8 billion people, is it good? Is it not good? Does everyone speak the same language? Not necessarily. What's going to become the main language? Obviously, I mean, English is one of the top languages, but it's also like the main language in China. What's the main?
Chinese, Mandarin, and then you've got
Mandarin.
Right now, German in the world of business is the number one sought after language to learn. But regardless, Barry's question, the New World Order is real. George Bush talked about it. Every president and high-ranking person from Kissinger and beyond. What people don't understand is Putin, along with China, the BRIC nations is what it's called. When Trump did his tour around the world, it was a tour of submission. And what I mean by that is, if you go watch what he did and the acts and the culture of these countries and how they responded to him, they were all submitting to the authority of the alliance. And that alliance goes far beyond people. It's the Palladian star systems, okay? And that's in Space Force's logo. You can go look this up. That being said, the real Putin's been replaced. He was replaced years ago. A lot of these people have. I've got pictures of every single one of these world leaders around the world, and they look very different from 2016, 17, and 18 to what they do now. Putin, the current Putin, is an ally with the alliance, and what he is doing is he is going to single-handedly expose the cabal. And he's going to do that via the proxy war with Ukraine. And he's going to do it by exposing the labs, the adrenochrome, and the tunnels. Not only that, all the money that's being funneled there into the Khazarian mafia. And so you're going to see the BRIC nations take a totally separate route from what's happening with the Great Reset, with the Klaus Schwabs and the WHO and the International Monetary Fund. The BRIC nations are a powerful, powerful force. You are seeing the death of the fiat currency in real time. And so I don't see the New World Order coming to fruition the way that people see, because there's too many power factions that don't fucking want it. Putin is a born-again Christian, an Orthodox Christian who has Russia's best interest in mind from a nationalist sovereignty aspect. He has been very outspoken in regards to the evil Satan worship that is the West. He does not give a fuck about anything that's happening over here. And in theory, that's dangerous because this country does suck, whether people believe it or not. We are awful right now. Our people mean well, but we're broken and everything's falling apart, and the world sees it and knows it. But again, this is all by design. So I'm not too worried about the New World Order, the Great Reset's being exposed for what it is. Even Elon Musk, I don't know if you saw that. He literally spoke out at this World Summit this past week and said, yeah, one world government's going to fail and we shouldn't do it. Long story short.
Yeah, so what do you think about him, right? Like, obviously, so Anna said, on the vein of, is it good, is it not good? Is it best to approach wake to sleeping? That's the whole mindset of, like, if there is aliens, let's not tell them there's aliens, because if we tell people there's aliens, everybody's going to lose their fucking mind. Like that's that train of thought. We can kind of go past that. We've kind of hit on that in various aspects of this one and the past 3 episodes that we've done on this. Anna, I would love for you to go watch those other 3 episodes I posted in here. I mean, it's like 6-7 hours of just this, right? And very similar stuff. It's awesome. And it's a bunch of bros just talking, being funny. And also, everybody that's listening, like, that is what this is. A lot of this is like just a couple bros on here talking. Obviously, at the end of the day, we don't know anything, right? But a lot of the stuff that we have said or brought to things may or may not be true. Hang on, we got another one here, my guy. So every scientist is just wrong about the Earth being flat. You have to acknowledge there is a chance of you might being wrong. No?
Haro, I encourage you to go spend a year and study alternative Earths. And I promise you this much. After a year, if you are diligent, and again, if you will remove your emotions, because everything that I hear in that question is you're not willing to let go of your beliefs. And so if you're willing to step outside of yourself and start to look at things objectively, I promise you this much. By the time you are done, you at least will not believe in the heliocentric version of what we are told Earth is. That is my encouragement to you.
Love it.
And
one more here.
By the way, when you say every scientist, that is a very blanketed statement, because there's a fuck ton of scientists that agree with me. And so I would rephrase your question as well in the future.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, right? You hear the mainstream media and they say one thing and then they say, the majority of scientists, right? Okay. So just because the majority is in one way doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way. If you look during COVID, the majority of doctors would recommend you do this. Well, the slim amount of doctors that recommended you do another thing, actually, if you go to the CDC now and you look at like the ways to handle COVID and ways to like, I guess, what is it, treatments of COVID? Like ivermectin, which is what everyone said was a horse dewormer, which it is, the animal version. But ivermectin, the medication, is now on the website as a protocol in treating the medicine after they pretty much shamed Joe Rogan and every doctor that came out saying, this is what I would use if you had it.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't work, but it's got the highest percentage of working. We've seen the best results in a short data set of it working. It's like that, right? So it doesn't matter if they're right now or wrong. It's going to come out in the wash later on down the road.
Well, Bill Gates encouraged everyone to read a book called Lying with Statistics. And so even what Haro just said, or just now, the majority, who the fuck's the majority? I mean, you can just make things up. Psychologically, all you have to do is say 4 out of 5 doctors. Which 4 out of 5 fucking doctors are you talking about?
Right.
I mean, again, it's very easy to manipulate people with words. And again, I can go into the deep, deep magic of words, because most people don't realize. Gunnar, I'm gonna challenge everyone to do this. Go get jars, okay? Go get jars of sea moss. Put 3 different jars of sea moss in water. Okay, glass jars, and then write on those jars. I want you to write on one jar, I fucking hate you. On the middle jar, don't write a damn thing. And then on the third jar, write, I love you. And I want you to watch what happens to that sea moss.
Interesting.
The power of words. The world was created with words, the magic and the math behind it all.
So think, what is a spell? Casting a spell is used with words. Spelling is word. Yes, spells are words, and words do matter. If you listen to Andrew Tate, he talks about words matter. You listen to Gary the Numbers Guy, he talks about how words matter.
Yep.
You talk about your most influential, most persuasive salespeople of all time, aka really rich business people. Those people are what? Really good with words. Who was the best person good with words as president? Barack Obama. It's like, like words do matter, and the way you speak the words and the tonality with words and the persuasion that comes with words, they're a big thing. But if you look back, I guess I don't know as much about the occult and all that stuff as you do, but like that would be a big part of it, right? The way you said things, the way you approach people, casting the spell, right? It's just the spelling of a specific word and the meaning.
I mean, why do you think people do incantations and affirmations every day? You are strong. You're good enough. You can do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but guess what? If you're going to beat yourself up every fucking day, that's going to have a core effect on a baseline level of your identity, your self-esteem, and your self-worth.
Here we go. Each to their own opinion. Maybe you're right about spending a year. Might change my mind about the flat earth, but the idea of a massive cover-up among millions of people in aerospace, shipping, airline travel just seems a bit of a stretch. Conversation is fun to have, though. I agree on that. And this is coming from
let me ask, though, who's the millions? Who's the millions? Because there's not. Who's the millions? Are you talking about the truckers? Because they don't give a shit, because they're eating hot fries and jerking off in parking lots. Are you talking about people running the ships? Because they're worried about the waves and the nautical aspect of this. I mean, what are you talking about, millions? There's not millions. There's only so many people in high places in these institutions that are actually managing this shit. It's not millions at all. Again, most people do not give a fuck. Most people are worried about the View and their sports team and making sure that they can pay rent. And most people in this world don't have the same access that people like us do to information. I mean, again, so I'm not so sure when people, again, using numbers, the millions, please show me the millions of people that work in all of these institutions. It's not.
Especially when you get to you have people that are workers of these industries, but
That's
people that actually work to move the industry forward and know the ins and outs and the beginnings and the history of them. Correct. There's not many when you get to that part. It's almost like, like I always go back to who runs the president, who runs those people, who runs those people. I always want to know the top of the pyramid. I think we've talked about that in the past, but like,
if you're running
if you're
running a submarine, if you're running a submarine and your job is X, that is your job. And most likely you don't know a ton. You probably know a handful. You don't know how that whole fucking ship works. You don't know where you're actually going at the end of the day. You're there to do a job. And that's what most people don't realize. These people in high places, these systems that have been produced and put in place, yeah, it's not millions of people, man, at all. Most people don't give a shit. Most people are duped. Most people are docile, just like you. Hero, you just said it. Well, if I spent a year, it probably would change my mind. But I'm not. Okay, then. Then don't fucking get butt hurt when I bring shit up.
I love it, dude. I love these conversations. I think these are always fun. It's obviously going to affect people and bring an emotional response from people, mainly because, everyone's been told a certain way of doing things, a certain way to live throughout their whole life. If you do go against it, like you do, like I do with some of the things, you get looked at as a weirdo. He's a quack. He's a weirdo. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But you always have that one bit of evidence that when things happen, you're like, didn't I say that 5 years ago? Didn't I say that 7 years ago? Didn't I bring that up just a couple months ago? So there's that to it too. And then people say, well, anybody can get right if they make predictions about everything.
Yeah, somebody said a broken clock hits 12 or whatever twice a day or something like that. Yeah. And it's like, hey, go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not here for that. Again, these people, when people bring stuff up like that, it lets me know that they want to affirm their biases. They're not looking for the truth. I'm looking for the truth. And again, I've seen entities. I've had things talk to me. I've had spiritual experiences that have pushed me beyond the veil when it comes to this stuff. And it's not about being right. But if you're going to be closed-minded and then argue, this is why the world is where it is. Short-sightedness and complacency on your own beliefs will get you nowhere. And so, and Gunnar, you know this. I research shit all the time. I am very open with my beliefs. I am very open with what is reality. And so, again, I'm not here to argue. If you don't want to do the work, don't do the fucking work. And when shit hits the fan, good luck. Yeah,
listen, Barry might be my favorite person in the chat. I'm loving Barry. I have a vision of Barry because he's a driver, right? I have a vision of Barry, driving down the road, just being like, hell yeah, these guys are right. This is awesome. Like I just have that vision. Barry, thanks for coming around.
And you know what? Last thing I'll say, and you know this, when I'm dead, I'm going to be forgotten in about 3 fucking weeks. You think I give 2 shits at the end of the day? No. The only opinions I care about are about 2 people. All right. That's about it right now. And at the end of the day, my hope is that when it's all said and done, I set the people up that I love to live an incredible life and to do more than I could ever imagine, and to be happy and whole and a person that brings value and love and meaning and purpose to themselves and to life. And outside of that, everybody else can fuck off.
Dude, I'm with it. Well, listen, man, I know you got to go. You got a whole family over there to get back to. You've got your podcast that you're doing, Biding My Time. Yeah, Biding My Time with Chris McNelly. I've done the show. You haven't posted that episode yet, but you've already got like 20-something episodes, maybe more by now, in the can. Getting some really cool guests.
Today was number 26 with guests. And, dude, I've got some heavy hitters coming on. Laura Logan, David Harris Jr., Roger Stone. I did 107. I posted him earlier, so I'm going to start sharing that. If you're not familiar with 107, He is the individual that wrote The Kid by the Side of the Road. And so if you want a little bit more detail on the military operation that is Q, and here's something that's funny about that. Whether you believe in it as a psyop or as a conspiracy, the reality is that it's happening. I did everything I could when this was introduced to me to debunk it because I was not a Trump fan. I need people to hear that. In 2016, I did not vote for Donald Trump, and I told people that he is just another wing of the same bird. And so when this was brought to me, I said, okay, I'll do my due diligence. I can look at things objectively. And then fast forward, Gunner, here we are to where, once again, I tried to prove flat Earth wrong, and then it wrecked my whole fucking world. And so I encourage people to go read and go do your research because you might find some breadcrumbs in there that really help your point of view when it comes to your own life.
Chris,
and what's happening?
I'm getting a bunch of questions, and we got one last question after this. But where can everybody find your podcast? Where can they find other stuff where we've talked about similar things? Real quick, Barry, you can go up to the top of the screen in the comments. I posted 3 different podcasts where we did long form 1 to 3 hour episodes talking about this very stuff as COVID happened, and you'll read or hear in that things that have happened that have been proven true since those conversations. That's why I like those talks. That's why I like sharing them with people, even though they got kicked me off of YouTube for a little bit. So yes, keep that up. But Chris has his own podcast. He has his own, media channel. So Chris, can I go into your podcast right?
Oh, here's the comments. Can I write a comment? How do I do this?
Or which one are you in? You're in the private chat?
I just did the private chat, copy and paste it.
I got
so
you.
That's the website. It'll take you everywhere you need to go. It's biding my time, bmt.sln.tv. And then if you go to my social media, just Chris McNelly, my handle on Instagram, even though I'm shadow banned pretty hard right now and I've been told I'm going to get kicked off, it's MACNELLS, McNells. From there, you can find everything. I post a lot of my stories, and good luck.
Hey, we've got one more question right here from our main guy right here. Just the last question. I'm here to learn. How about ships that disappear in the horizon and ships slowly appearing?
That is a incredibly well-crafted falsehood. That is called your vanishing point is what it's called. And so there is no such thing as the curve. Water always finds its level. I encourage everyone to please try and manipulate water where it does not find its level. Okay? The fact that people think that gravity on some level in any form or fashion with a spinning ball through infinite space at 1,000 miles an hour is just, going with the trade winds and the currents. That's just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I'm going to post an Evernote, Gunner, on my story at some point today or tomorrow, so tell anybody that wants to know. And it is going to be anything and everything on alternative Earths.
I love it. I'll be tuning into it. So listen,
Harjot,
listen, and if I'm mispronouncing your name, I'm sorry, but I've asked Chris about every question that you can ask somebody, trying to get him to take, a 15-second break before he actually answers the question. I've been a failure at this, and I'm a guy that loves to kind of poke and pry and ask questions that I think can't be answered, and I've yet to have a question not be answered. So if anything, go and look at some of this stuff. It's fascinating. Worst case scenario, you're going to learn a bunch of shit you didn't even know happened. You're going to learn a bunch of stuff on this, and you're going to learn real history, like things that people forget about, or things that people just don't talk about, or things that are, just kind of pushed to the side, and only a select few people actually dive deep into. And those people are the ones that are considered quacks when they're actually just spewing out stuff that's already happened before and giving examples. They're like, well, that's not true. Well, it's just because it's not on Netflix and not on ABC and not on Fox News or CNN doesn't mean it's not true. So let's just kind of, look into a little bit more stuff.
Think about this, Gunner. I said this recently to somebody. Just because it's fake doesn't mean it's not happening. So wrap your head around that for a second.
No, that's good. Well, hey, man, this was fun. I'm sure that by the end of 2023, there will be more reasons for us to maybe do this again. This is big for me because a lot of people also don't know. Chris is the reason why I'm even doing a podcast. He was, when I speak about the studio that brought me on to do a wrestling podcast back in the day, Chris was one of the ones that, kind of brought me on from there. He was the one that saw me read a teleprompter for the first time. We realized that's probably not my strong suit. And I can understand why Joe Biden has an issue at, 90 years old trying to read a teleprompter, because I couldn't do it at 27. Listen, I thank you. I told you this on yours too. Like, dude, I do thank you for getting me kind of out of my comfort zone, getting me into this. The podcast has helped me more so in sales than anything that's helped me in general. Being able to have 2-hour and 14-minute conversations by being an active listener and continue the conversation is the main thing in sales. People want to learn the words to sell and don't want to learn the questions to ask to get people to provide them the answers that they can give the solutions to, right? Or to create a problem that you need to solve, because that's what sales is. It's either finding the problem or creating one. So, hey, man, thank you so much for doing the show. Let's jump on later in the year when you get more of your podcast and everything that you're doing on the side kind of up and running. Would love to promote anything you're doing. You've got a platform, my platform, whenever you need it, man. I really appreciate you and your friendship.
Gunner, dude, I love you, man. And I'm pumped for that baby. I mean, it's almost any day?
We are T-minus 8 days, right? It keeps getting a second quicker, and she's at a moment right now where she says 8 days. I'm like, listen, we could have a baby like now until next Monday. So let's just kind of figure it out. And like, we're here. Like, we just did our 4D ultrasound. So we like saw the baby's face and stuff. It's like, I'm like, that's pretty crazy that you can do that these days. But yeah, man, it's getting close. I'm excited.
Soak it up. Let me know.
Hey, thanks for the gift, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
we got the gift. Yeah, we got it. Thank you so much.
Did that. I didn't do shit. She did it.
I don't do any of it either. I take credit.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys got it. But dude, take heart, crush it. If you need anything, it was less than a year ago where I was like, all right, peace out, guys. I headed to the hospital. It's a thrill, dude. Just be present, be in that fucking room, and remind Tia that she is 1,000,000,000% capable of doing everything. So you guys got this. I'm so pumped.
Dude, she's the best, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you. I'll catch you on the flip side. Go do what you need to do as a dad, and we'll see you later. All right, man?
Come on. Bye, Gunner.
See you, buddy.